Ousmane Dembélé ended the 2021-22 season with 2 goals in 32 games. Having cost Barcelona a club record potential €145 million, the Frenchman was widely derided as a flop. Ravaged by injuries, blighted by inconsistencies, and haunted by high-profile howlers, Dembélé had his moments in a Barca shirt, but it seemed as though he had become one of all too many tales in football of what might have been. Last month, Dembélé became only the 10th footballer in history to have won the Champions League, the World Cup, and the Ballon d'Or. The other 9 are Lionel Messi, Kaká, Zinedine Zidane, Ronaldinho, Rivaldo, Paolo Rossi, Gerd Müller, Franz Beckenbauer, and Bobby Charlton. Not bad company to keep for a supposed flop. Still only 28 years of age, Dembélé scored 35 goals and made 16 assists in 53 appearances for PSG last season, averaging a goal contribution once every 68 minutes, and picking up the UEFA Champions League Player of the Season award, the Ligue 1 Player of the Year award, and ultimately the Ballon d'Or. What might have been, in Dembélé's case, is now what is. That got me thinking about some of football's greatest career comebacks of all time. Inspired by Dembélé, I'm not referring so much to players like Serge Gnabry, Harry Kane, Mohamed Salah, Kevin De Bruyne, or Didier Drogba, that is to say, players whose careers took a little while to ignite and who perhaps had one early transfer that didn't quite work out. Nor am I referring to players like Ronaldo Nazario, Santi Cazorla, or Christian Eriksen, whose form perhaps never fully dropped off, but who made stunning comebacks from career-threatening injuries. Or, briefly dying in Eriksen's case. I'm thinking of players like Luka Modric, who was voted by marca readers as La Liga's worst signing in his debut campaign at Real Madrid, before going on to become one of the club, and indeed, the sport's greatest midfielders of all time, Diego Forlan, who never quite managed to find his feet at Manchester United, but who won the La Liga Golden Boot twice with Villarreal and Atletico Madrid, and the World Cup Golden Boot and Golden Ball with Uruguay, or even Joe Linton, who was slated as a misfiring £40 million forward at Newcastle under Steve Bruce, before becoming one of the Premier League's best box-to-box midfielders under Eddie Howe, and breaking into the Brazil team. Except, hopefully even better and more extreme examples, otherwise I should just have included them. So without further ado, whose career could sadly never be fully resurrected at Real Salt Lake, Benfica, Monaco, Belenenses, Aris, Čajka Rizespor, Philadelphia Union, Barria, Jagodina, KUPS, the Tampa Bay Rowdies, the Las Vegas Lights or Østerdalen, but who will forever be in our hearts of course, here are 7 footballers who were good, then they were bad, and then they were really, really good again. It's all very highbrow. 7th, Nicolas Anelka. Born 2 years after Thierry Henry. That isn't him. If you speak to almost anyone who was at the Clairefontaine Academy in France or at Arsenal in the 1990s, alongside both Nicolas Anelka and Thierry Henry, they will tell you that Anelka was both more talented and more complete, and had more potential than his slightly older teammates. Lightning quick, blessed with magic in both feet, and not only lethal in front of goal, but possessing a brilliantly varied range of finishes within his arsenal, no pun intended, Anelka had the world at his feet. Unfortunately, he also had rot in his brain. He scored 19 goals for Arsenal in the 1998-99 season, aged 19 for most of it, preceding a massive reported £23.5 million move to Real Madrid. Now, I know that might not seem like much to some younger viewers. You're probably thinking he must have been rubbish then, but at the time, that was a British record fee for either an incoming or outgoing signing, and it almost broke the world record. Having only missed out on the Premier League Golden Boot by a single goal in his final season at Arsenal, Anelka struggled to score goals at the Bernabeu, where patience and sympathy are in as short supply as intelligence, or any semblance of self-awareness, on the Joe Rogan podcast. It took Anelka 5 months to score his first goal for Real Madrid, even longer to score his first league goal, and he only scored 7 goals in 31 games in the Spanish capital in total. A return to PSG and a low move to Liverpool yielded mixed results before Anelka's first renaissance at Man City in the mid-2000s. The Citizens were a mid-table team at best at the time though, And Anelka followed that up with 18 months in Turkey with Fenerbahce, where he only scored 16 goals in 57 games in all competitions. Aged 27 at this stage, it looked as though the opportunity for Anelka to become a world-class centre-forward had been and gone, and he wasn't even included in France's Euro 2004 or 2006 World Cup squads. Enter, stage left, Sir Sam Allardyce. Officially just Sam Allardyce, of course, as his knighthood must have been lost in the post, who brought Anelka to Bolton Wanderers in 2006. It was at the Reebok Arena, alongside the likes of Kevin Nolan and former Real Madrid teammate Ivan Campo, that Anelka reignited his career, most notably at the start of his second season, bagging 11 goals in 22 games and convincing Chelsea to fork out £15 million on him mid-season. Expected to be an understudy to lone striker Didier Drogba by some people, Anelka nailed down a starting berth on either the left or the right of a front three, and over the next 4 years, he scored 59 goals and made 28 assists from 184 appearances for a fantastic Chelsea team. In his first full season at Stamford Bridge, Anelka won the Premier League Golden Boot, and he topped Chelsea's scoring charts for a second time, 3 goals ahead of Drogba, in the 2010-11 season under Carlo Ancelotti. Anelka still never hit the heights that he was truly capable of, which was becoming a generational forward who made Ballon d'Or podiums, but he went from being an outcast at both club and international level, whose time at Fenerbahce could only convince Bolton to take an interest in him, to starring for one of the best teams in the world and topping the Premier League scoring charts, ahead of the likes of Wayne Rooney, Steven Gerrard and Cristiano Ronaldo, and that is sufficient grounds for him to kickstart our 7. We will just skate over his time at West Brom. Hey, look, no comeback is indefinite. 6th, Karim Benzema. I know what some of you are thinking. Karim Benzema? He never had a failed 18 months at Fenerbahce or was branded a €145 million flop at Barcelona. When is he supposed to have been down and out? Well, our brains can sometimes play tricks on us, and Karim Benzema's majestic start and end to his Real Madrid career can smooth out our memories of what happened in the middle. What happened in the middle, specifically in the 2016-17 and most notably the 2017-18 seasons, is that Benzema wasn't very prolific, he was booed and jeered by Real Madrid supporters, and there were widespread calls for him to be sold. Benzema only scored 5 La Liga goals in the 2017-18 season, and 12 in all competitions. Meanwhile, Cristiano Ronaldo scored 44. There was a game against Las Palmas in late 2017, where virtually every one of Benzema's touches was greeted by a cacophony of boos by Real Madrid supporters, whose own players had to plead with them to stop. It was a frequent occurrence throughout that campaign, and it is a little surreal to look back on Reddit posts like this one, and many others like it, which are prefaced with, "No matter how bad Benzema is, this is still disgusting to me," and where the top comment reads, quote, "At this point I feel pity for him, he should leave and maybe build what he has left at another club." End quote. In truth, right up to the summer of 2018, following 9 years at the club, and despite already having scored more than 150 goals for them, many Real Madrid fans had a lukewarm relationship with their French number 9 at best. When Cristiano Ronaldo departed for Juventus in 2018, the overwhelming view of Real Madrid supporters was that the club needed a more prolific centre-forward than Benzema, who just had his worst ever season with them, and a poll by AS found that a majority of supporters surveyed favoured starting Mariano Diaz, brought back to Madrid from Lyon that summer, ahead of Benzema. There was a feeling that perhaps Gareth Bale or maybe even Isco could step up and become Madrid's main man in Ronaldo's absence, but few felt that Benzema could. Over the next 5 years, however, between the ages of 30 and 35, the man that most Madrid fans had wanted sold in 2018 scored 162 goals in 236 games, playing the best football of his career and reaching a deafening crescendo in the 2021-22 season, in which he scored 44 goals and made 15 assists in 46 appearances, inspiring Real Madrid to a Champions League and La Liga double, and winning the Ballon d'Or by the second widest margin of all time, 356 points ahead of second place Sadio Mane. The perception of Benzema's low was far greater than his performances at that time, I would suggest, but the fact remains that he went from his every touch being booed, fans wanting him sold, and scoring 5 league goals in 32 appearances in an entire season, to winning a Ballon d'Or by a wider margin than Lionel Messi ever has. It's a pretty staggering career comeback by any metric, even if his lowest ebb was higher than most of the players still to come. 5th. Granit Xhaka. A recent example, but a classic of the genre nonetheless, this is a visual representation of Granit Xhaka's career, and that is the perfect career trajectory in order to earn a spot in this 7. Xhaka, who was born in Switzerland to Kosovar Albanian parents, made his senior international debut at Wembley against England in a Euro 2012 qualifier at the age of only 18. A rising star at Basel, Xhaka was soon snapped up by Borussia Mönchengladbach for a reported €8.5 million. By the time that he joined Arsenal in 2016, this time for £30 million, there were debates around who was a better signing between Xhaka and N'Golo Kante. Arsenal themselves had backed out of a deal for Kante, largely due to what they deemed to be excessive agent fees, but also because of Xhaka's outstanding form in the Bundesliga and at Euro 2016. Xhaka's first few seasons at the Emirates could accurately be described as a mixed bag, as his range of passing and occasional wonder goals impressed, but his defensive ill-discipline and recklessness drew criticism. It was evident, as always ought to have been the case, that Xhaka was not a similar profile of player to Kante at all, and that he was at his best playing alongside a midfield destroyer, rather than being expected to perform that role himself. Nonetheless, Arsenal persisted in their delusion for far too long, Xhaka was drained of all confidence and belief, and his performances reached a nadir between the 2019-20 and 2021-22 seasons. In October 2019, Xhaka was booed and jeered by Arsenal supporters, who celebrated when Unai Emery substituted him, prompting Xhaka to cup his ear and goad the Arsenal supporters before throwing his shirt on the ground and walking straight down the tunnel. When Xhaka left Arsenal in the summer of 2023, following a mini resurgence in his final season in North London, returning to the Bundesliga with Bayer Leverkusen, he was on the verge of turning 31. He only played Champions League football once in 7 seasons at the Emirates, and that was in his first season, through qualification achieved before he arrived. It seemed as though Xhaka's prospects of playing a starring role for an elite-level team were done and dusted, but Xabi Alonso had other ideas. Partnered with Robert Andrek, a genuine midfield sitter and destroyer who allowed Xhaka to focus on his playmaking, the former Basel star was a new man. Xhaka's role was not dissimilar in some ways to the one that Alonso played at Liverpool or Real Madrid, alongside the likes of Javier Mascherano or Sami Khedira, and though Florian Wirtz was Leverkusen's star man, arguably no one was more important to them that season and how they played than Xhaka. No outfield player played more minutes, as Leverkusen went invincible domestically, winning both the DFB Pokal and their first ever Bundesliga, finishing 17 points ahead of Stuttgart and 18 clear of Bayern Munich, in addition to reaching the final of the Europa League. The following season, which is to say last season, was a bit of a come down, almost anything would have been, but Leverkusen still finished as Bundesliga runners-up, reached the DFB Pokal semi-finals and the Champions League round of 16, with Xhaka starring once again. From being berated by Arsenal supporters, and his withdrawal during a game being celebrated like a goal at the age of 27, Xhaka finished 16th in Ballon d'Or voting, above Fede Valverde, Cole Palmer, and any Arsenal player at the age of 32, in addition to making both the Bundesliga and the Europa League teams of the season. Signed by Sunderland in the summer just gone, Xhaka has also been a revelation at the Stadium of Light, where he is the team's talisman and already has 3 assists in 6 games. 4th. Johan Cruyff. With all due respect to Granit Xhaka, and I'm not just saying that, there is a slight step up in class to one of the greatest footballers of all time in 4th place. Probably the single most gifted European footballer to have ever lived, Johan Cruyff was untouchable at his best, but also occasionally mercurial and a bit volatile. He was scoring a goal a game at Ajax at the age of only 18, seemingly became bored with putting the ball in the back of the net, and so he decided to pioneer a Dutch variation of total football alongside head coach Rinus Michels in his early 20s instead. 3 successive European Cups and 3 successive Ballon d'Ors were the culmination of that project, as Cruyff became the undisputed greatest player on the planet before leaving Ajax for Barcelona. There, he transformed Barcelona not just in an instant, inspiring the club to their first La Liga title in 14 years in his debut campaign, but for a lifetime, shaping the ideology which defines Barcelona and La Masia to this day. And that was all before he turned 30. Cruyff retired in 1978 after leaving Barcelona, despite being among the best players in the world still, but a series of poor investments led him to come out of retirement a year later, with Los Angeles Aztecs in the lucrative North American Soccer League. It seemed like a cash grab, because it was, but Cruyff was still named as the NASL's MVP in his first season back, in a league which starred the likes of Carlos Alberto Torres, Gerd Muller, and his old pal and adversary, Franz Beckenbauer. Cruyff returned to Europe in 1981 with Spanish Segunda Division side Levante, having initially come close to joining relegation-threatened First Division club Leicester City. Cruyff struggled for fitness at Valencia's second club and fell out with the club's hierarchy, which meant that he only played 10 games and scored 2 goals before returning to the NASL with the Washington Diplomats. Now aged 34, and not having played international or top-flight football in Europe for over 3 years, it appeared as though Cruyff was finished as a force at the highest level. Ajax endured a slow start to the 1981-82 season though, losing games against FC Twente, Sparta Rotterdam and AZ, and so they launched an audacious bid to bring Cruyff home. Cruyff's homecoming was confirmed in December 1981. He proceeded to score 7 goals in 15 games that season, and Ajax regained the Eredivisie title. They retained it the following season, and Cruyff won his first Dutch Footballer of the Year award in 12 years. Despite that fact, at the age of 36, Ajax decided not to offer Cruyff a new deal. A scorned Cruyff joined Ajax's bitter rivals Feyenoord instead, where he partnered Peter Houtman and Ruud Gullit in the club's forward line for one last dance, winning an Eredivisie and KNVB Cup double, which was Feyenoord's first league title in 10 years, and first double in almost 20. Ajax finished third. You should have offered him a new deal, lads. Third, Isco. Propelling us right back into the present day, Isco's career trajectory is not dissimilar to Ousmane Dembele's, only more extreme, at least in terms of the lows. Sensationally talented, Isco joined his hometown club Malaga from Valencia as a 19-year-old in 2011, and in his debut campaign, he won the La Liga Breakthrough Player and Golden Boy awards, recognising him as the best young player on the planet. His second season was even more impressive, as Isco scored 12 goals and made 6 assists, as Malaga made it through to the quarter-finals of the UEFA Champions League. A €30 million move to Real Madrid followed, as Isco became Carlo Ancelotti's first signing at the Bernabeu, and his first few seasons were full of promise. Isco was no longer the star man, alongside the likes of Bale and Ronaldo, but he initially appeared to be developing nicely. It was only when Ronaldo left Real Madrid, in 2018, that a 26-year-old Isco was expected to kick on. Instead, he did the exact opposite. In the 2020-21 season, Isco didn't score a single goal, and he only registered 2 assists from 29 appearances. Beyond the numbers, though, his performances lacked the spark and invention that had made him one of the most highly regarded youngsters on the planet. Following 4 seasons of disappointment, and that is putting it mildly, Isco was released by Real Madrid in 2022. He joined Sevilla, but after just 4 months, his contract was terminated by mutual agreement, with manager Jorge Sampaoli stating that Isco, quote, did not meet the club's expectations. This was in a Sevilla team that would go on to finish 12th that season. Isco subsequently came close to joining Union Berlin, before that deal collapsed, leaving him without a club for more than 6 months. By the time that Isco joined Real Betis in the summer of 2023, he was 31 years old, he had scored 2 La Liga goals in over 4 years, and not even some of his own family members were probably anticipating a major revival. They would be proved wrong though. Isco rolled back the years in his debut campaign with Sevilla's bitter rivals, scoring 9 goals, making 7 assists, and winning 6 Man of the Match awards. For the first time in his career, he made the La Liga Team of the Season. Last season, Isco, now age 33, replicated the feat, making 23 goal contributions in only 33 games, as well as winning the UEFA Conference League Player of the Season award as Real Betis reached the final. Earlier this year, Isco was recalled by Spain, the reigning European champions, for the first time in 6 years. A recognition of an extraordinary and at one time seemingly highly improbable career turnaround that sees him kickstart our podium places. Second, Ferenc Puskas. I didn't want to include players who just came back from injuries or out of retirement in this video, because that is a slightly different kind of career setback to actually performing poorly and being written off for that reason, which made Ferenc Puskas a bit of a difficult case to assess. One of the greatest forwards, goal scorers and footballers to have ever lived, Puskas made his name with Budapest Honvéd and Hungary's golden team, scoring 382 goals in 367 games for the former, and 84 goals from 85 caps for the latter. Widely recognised as the best European footballer throughout most of the 1950s, Puskas left Hungary in 1956 for Budapest Honvéd's European Cup first-round tie away at Athletic Club. He wouldn't return to Hungary until 1981. While the Honvéd squad were in Bilbao, the Hungarian uprising was suppressed by the Soviet Union. The Honvéd players decided not to fly home, instead going on a world tour, playing exhibition games in Italy, Portugal, Spain and Brazil. Every team in Europe wanted to sign Puskas until he was issued with a 2-year ban by UEFA. By the time that it expired, Puskas, who had been living in Austria and Italy, was 31 years old, unfit, and overweight. He tried and failed to find a Serie A club who'd sign him, since he was living in Italy, all of them put off by concerns around his age and weight, before a proposed move to Manchester United fell through owing to complications. Then Puskas received a phone call from Real Madrid president Santiago Bernabeu. Those who had doubted Puskas, as with a 36-year-old Cruyff, was soon made to look very foolish. Following 2 years out of the game and into his 30s, he scored a hat-trick in only his second game for Real Madrid, which would be the first of 4 hat-tricks that season and the first of 23 in a Real Madrid shirt. Only Cristiano Ronaldo and Alfredo Di Stefano have scored more for the club. In 8 years with Madrid, aged 31 to 39, Puskas scored 242 goals in 262 games, including an astonishing 47 goals in 36 games in his second season, which probably ought to have won him the Ballon d'Or. He finished second that year, behind Luis Suarez, not that one, and never got his hands on the Golden Ball. Puskas won 5 La Liga titles and 3 European Cups in 8 seasons with Los Blancos though, leading the La Liga scoring charts 4 times and the European Cups twice, and even becoming a Spanish international, following 85 caps for Hungary, in 1961. Puskas never had an extended spell of poor form, which is why I debated about including him in this 7 and why he doesn't take top spots, but he spent 2 years out of the game in which he entered his 30s, was dismissed by many onlookers, and then bagged a goal a game for Real Madrid until he was almost 40, so second feels just. First, Jose Fonte. Alright. I know what some of you are thinking again. How can Jose Fonte top a list where Ferenc Puskas and Johan Cruyff are second and fourth? Admittedly, Jose Fonte's peak probably wasn't as high as those two. I am happy to concede that point before I am referred to an asylum, but I still think that his career comeback was arguably even more remarkable. Cruyff was just disinterested for a few years, and once he got the fire in his belly, especially when motivated by bitterness, and after his investment in a pig farm went south, he was able to turn on the style. Meanwhile, Puskas was just wrongly dismissed following 2 years out of the game, before reminding everyone that he was the Don. Neither of them looked like cart horses running through treacle at West Ham before being banished to China though. Yet that is exactly what happened to Jose Fonte between 2017 to 2018. A fantastic servant to Southampton for 7 seasons, West Ham signed Fonte for £8 million in January 2017, thinking that they had bolstered their defensive ranks by adding invaluable leadership and experience. Southampton's captain, as they finished 6th in the Premier League only the previous season, Fonte had been unable to agree a new and improved deal with the Saints, claiming that the club hadn't even offered him a contract. Southampton's reluctance to tie Fonte down on a big contract might have had something to do with his poor performances in the first half of the 2016-17 season though, and things immediately got off to a bad start at West Ham. West Ham co-owner David Sullivan stated that his children had, and I quote, begged him not to sign Fonte, which is probably a comment best kept in-house. Nonetheless, on this occasion, Sullivan probably should have listened to his kids. On his debut, Fonte was run ragged by a brilliant Man City forward line, as West Ham lost 4-0 and he conceded a penalty. Just as his Hammers career looked to be rebounding at the start of the following campaign, Fonte suffered an ankle injury and he failed to re-establish himself at the London Stadium. In February 2018, after 13 months, West Ham cut their losses and sold Fonte to Chinese Super League outfit Dalian Yifang, probably not pronounced like that, let's be honest, where he played 9 games before his contract was terminated after just 5 months. Age 35 then, Fonte joined Lille in the summer of 2018, who had avoided relegation from Ligue 1 by just a single point the previous season. His career looked to be in a tailspin, but over the next 3 years, Fonte reasserted himself as one of the most solid and dependable centre-backs in Ligue 1. He played a pivotal role as Lille won a shock Ligue 1 title, dethroning PSG, and he returned to the Portugal team, with whom he won the UEFA Nations League in 2019, starting alongside Ruben Dias and keeping a clean sheet, as Portugal beat the Netherlands in the final. Fonte won his last Portugal cap in 2022. Age 39, he joined Braga in 2023, and he is still playing top-flight football in Portugal now, aged almost 42, for Lisbon-based Casa Pia. It's not quite Dembele's Ballon d'Or or Puskas' 3 European Cups, but on the unlikely scale, if you'd have asked most people to predict Jose Fonte's next 7 years following failed moves to both China and West Ham United, I think that it would rank pretty close to the top. This could have been about a 7-part series in truth, with the likes of Fabio Cannavaro, Luca Toni, Branislav Ivanovic, Paul McGrath, Robert Huth, Antoine Griezmann, Edwin van der Sar, Zlatan Ibrahimovic, Dutch Real Madrid trio, Wesley Sneijder, Ian Robben, and Rafael van der Vaart, Ryan Gravenberch, Jesus Navas, Kevin Davies, Jermaine Defoe, Juan Roman Riquelme, Hatem Ben Arfa, and Joselu all making my shortlist, among many, and I really do mean many others. The most remarkable career comeback of all is surely still Thiago Silva at Fluminense from 2007 onwards, covered extensively in my 7 greatest redemption arcs in football video. But since it was almost solely injury and coming out of retirement related, it too missed out. Anyway, that is it for today's video. I hope that you enjoyed it. Apologies if not. Hit the like button if you did. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. And of course, make sure that you are subscribed and have notifications turned on. Not just for this channel, HITC Sevens, but just as, if not even more importantly, some would argue, for my second channel, Alfie Potts Armour, both of which should be about to appear on your screens any minute now, along with a couple of videos that you might enjoy watching after this one. You can also follow me on social media. It's usually the username at HITC Sevens. And you can now support me additionally, either via becoming a channel member on the Alfie Potts Armour YouTube channel, or via buymeacoffee.com/Alfie Potts Armour, where you can do likewise, but Google won't take almost a third of it. That's it from me. I will see you all very shortly, I hope. Take care out there. Have a magnificent weekend. I love you all. Cheers.